So we start off with our normal prayer, and then I'll have a pause where you can formulate any questions you might have. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. We mean maybe not unnecessarily cavil with each other. And peace, peace, peace be unto all. So with that, I'll make a pause and you can ask some questions that will be useful to you in spiritual life.
Because I did have a kind of a question that comes from, actually, I think it was yesterday, where someone asked you about astronomy, and I was just wondering, what's your view within spirituality and then other practices that can connect to it, and if you said that you stay away from like astrology, then I mean, was the reason that you see there so so we can look through different eyes at it, and like, for example, angel numbers and stuff like that, because there are things that are out there, and sometimes they do make sense because there's a lot going on. But yeah, just your view, because obviously there's so much out there when you call out spirituality, so just to kind of filter and and kind of have a health look at it, really.
Okay, thank you. So sometimes there's a confusion between definitions. What is religion? What is spirituality? I think previously I gave a definition that I picked up actually in France from a Christian pastor. He gave me a very good definition, the difference between a religious person and a spiritual person. A religious person believes in hell. A spiritual person has been through it. So, but that doesn't really clarify in any great detail. These terms are often confused, so let me give a summary of what I may have said previously. The word religion comes from the Greek religio or religere, and religio means regulation by means of rules. So we can see that clearly in current organized religions where there are structures, dogmas, doctrines. And these, according to Swami Vivekananda, are secondary details. They're not the primary thing. Why are they not the primary thing? Because the whole purpose of life needs to be understood. The long-term purpose on life must be an incremental set of moves where we grow deeper and deeper in our understanding of our own nature. And in doing that, we understand the nature of the totality. In a word, this is called moksha or freedom. And anything that interferes with it or diverts the mind from it will obviously not be in our favor. Why not? Well, the last few talks we've been talking about Buddha and Buddha's motive for enlightening his own enlightenment and spreading the message of enlightenment to others. It's all to do with pain. And Patanjali Yoga Sutra is also to do with that. So even if we take a passage from the Bhagavad Gita as a definition of what is yoga, yoga is viyoga. It's the separation of the connection with pain. It's the disunion with pain. So pain comes up frequently because most of us are experiencing this or have experienced it. We don't like pain. We try to avoid it, and yet it's there. What to do about it? So the practical implication of this is the other definition, that is religere, to read again. I think this was Cicero's definition. To read again, that's a root that can be possibly used for religion. That means it's compatible with our understanding of learning and knowledge. It comes in three progressions. First, Shravana, we have to hear what is there. Or read. Read is also a method of hearing. But the difference between reading and hearing with the ears is when we read something, we may use our own individual interpretation. When we hear it from a credible authority or teacher, then there's no need to decipher whether it's real, whether it's not. But there is a necessity for us to evaluate, is it reasonable? Do we understand it? Have we put it through the mill of our own analysis? And so manana is necessary. A kind of contemplation on the truth that convinces us that, yes, this makes sense. You know, somebody tells you something, instinctively you know it has the ring of truth. That's the saying. But then it has to go deeper because we have to understand the reality of what we're listening to and what we're reasoning about. This is nitidhyasana, that is meditation. We have to dive into it and discover what it actually is. And that direct experience will give us knowledge, nothing else. Knowledge of the inner wisdom kind. So, what is spirituality? Well, it's been used in many contexts. Increasingly in Ireland, there is a gap between those who subscribe to some religion and those who are put in the category of non-religious movement. If you ask many of those, do you believe in religion? They'll say no. I'm fed up with all this organization and doctrines and dogmas and structures, and it seems to me that it is a human structure. It seems to me that we have created God in our own image and likeness, not the other way around. And that would be perfectly true, but often out of necessity. So all the controls that go with it are liable over historical periods of time to fall into a corrupt state. And then a reformer is necessary. This happened in Buddha's time. This happened in Jesus' time. This happened in Krishna's time. The whole of the Bhagavad Gita uses language which is reconciling language. Sankhya instead of jnana, for example. Yoga. These are reconciling different philosophical standpoints. And Vedanta, it all comes under that umbrella somehow. But you see, I've heard these people say, no, I don't believe in any religion, but I'm spiritual. Then you have to analyze, what does that mean? I did come across a few people like that who said, no, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in angels. I see. And some people even say, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in angels, I do believe in aliens. All right, that's fine. What is your evidence? You don't believe in God, presumably, because you feel there's no evidence for it. That's the standard atheistic or agnostic line. But where's the evidence for angels, you see? Did you ever see an angel? There is somehow in modern man a curiosity that leans toward conspiracy. Something that is unusual is picked up. And some people delight in that and say, let's pick up this new thing. Maybe just to be different, or to think in a different way, or to express some level of inherent creativity. But is it factual? That's the point. Do I believe in angels? Yes. They're called tanmatras, subtle elements that make the crooked path straight before us. These are our divine graces acting as subtle creative waves, a forceful series of waves that sit behind what we call our reality and appear as our world of space and time and function and causality. Our world that we are familiar with and that we operate in, and inside which these questions are being framed. So this we endorse, this is our reality. But it's painful how to get out of it. Now, how to get out of it would be to resort to spirit. That would be spirituality. Spirituality is really religion, if religion is defined as realization. This is how Swami Vivekananda defines it. Religion is realization. In other words, we outgrow some structures, such as a building outgrows its scaffolding. During construction, it's required. After construction, it's not necessary. Up to a point, we can do away with it. So we do need structures around ourselves, just as a plant needs a protective fence, needs watering, needs nurturing, needs nutrients in the soil, needs sunshine. That's true. But at a certain point, we can take these away. At a certain point, we can take our parental imposition away from a child and allow the child to grow freely by itself. The off-quote and text you see in the 6th chapter, let a person raise themselves up by themselves. Let them not lower themselves. Now you see this level of independence should be taught at a certain level, maybe age of 9, and then a child can move forward and become more independent, less reliant on other things. In other words, can discover things for themselves. Then we get into this wonderful growth area called teenagehood. Teenagehood is not just a question of rebellion and chewing gum. Teenagehood is an opportunity to challenge the accepted norms and values. But alas, much of teenagehood is spent going along with peers. So that maybe in this country, by the age of 15, most are following the line of agnostic and so on. And when you look at it carefully, it's peer pressure. That's really what it is. So spirituality is to do with the spirit, if we are to take it etymologically true. And Vedanta says there's only one thing that exists, and it's spirit. Everything is spirit. When you look at your wife, it's spirit. When you look at your husband, it's spirit. When you look at your children, it's spirit. I know it doesn't look like that. But they are spirited people. They are lively. They move, they walk, they talk. They have inherent intelligence. They can ultimately think for themselves. There is within them energy diverted toward emotions. When changes occur, biological changes, it stirs up emotions. You can't separate body and mind. What we call body is spirit. What we call mind is spirit. At the fundamental level, it's there. And at that fundamental level, when we discover it, all that material goes away. Finished. And then we discover it is only that spirit that exists. Now we happen to call the spirit Brahman. And in man, we call it Atman. Atman, the self. But when you discover it, there's no more any sense of individuality. So the word self itself yields to the whole principle of Brahman. There's only that exists, says the Vedanta philosophy, in its highest conclusion. Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman. Tattvamasi, thou art that. All these Mahavakyas are there, telling us only one thing. There is only one spirit. Secondly, the Atman, what you consider that in you and this one spirit are exactly the same thing. There's absolutely no difference. When you discover it in yourself, you discover it everywhere. And then, what is this world then? It is mithya, something like an appearance. It goes away when you fall asleep. And when you wake up, it comes back, reincarnates in the morning. But it does not like that, it's just an appearance. So I often give the example. Supposing I'm a caveman and I decide I want to explore what is this thing that comes up every morning, this thing called the sun. Let me investigate. Then I'll wait for it and see. Carefully, carefully, carefully. And in the summer, maybe the sun comes up at, let's say, 5 o'clock. Then I record faithfully. Don't ask me how I record it. Don't ask me, was paper invented? Or who gave me the pen? Was it a Parker pen or what? No, caveman in the Stone Age. None of that, but don't ask the question. It's an example, story. So carefully I record. Mr. Sun was born 5 o'clock this morning. Don't ask me where I got the watch from. The watch is anyway just a duplication of the sun's movement. All right. Then I watch it carefully, and intermittently I make notes. I decide that the sun has grown bigger after its birth. It now is a lively teenager. It's overhead and burning brightly. It is at its zenith. Or if I feel that your zenith is in your 70s, then, because naturally I would say that, then it's overhead in the 70s. But then it doesn't stay there. And as it goes down and down toward the west, I record, oh, Mr. Sun's health is waning. I fear for its life. It may not last long. And finally, at the very sunset, well, we have to announce regretfully, poor Mr. Sun died. We all go to sleep. Next morning, glorious news, it reincarnated. You see, the sun was never born, it never grew, it never evolved, it was never a teenager, it was never went into old age, it never died, it never reincarnated. We only believe in reincarnation of foolishness anyway. So nothing like that happened. It only looked like that because we couldn't see anything further. It was only from our point of view. The world is being evaluated from our point of view. And from our point of view, if we don't understand it, it would be foolish not to apply this rule of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and say, oh, maybe there was an elephant that blew out the sun one day and then sneezed and it disappeared another day. Or maybe it was a chariot that decided, let me start off on a journey, let me do it every day, move across the sky. The words sun and chariot, these are synonymous terms in the Vedas. Or I don't know, maybe there's a cosmic tortoise that throws a ball up in the morning and catches it in the evening. So all kinds of stories grow up because in the absence of real knowledge, we assume many, many things. Then somebody tells us, and being gullible, we'll accept it. No, you see, some cosmic animal, some cosmic beast is throwing it up. Don't you know that? Or we may say, no, a group of angels formed a cooperative and decided that they would move the sun today and leave it tomorrow and bring it out the next day. Now, in every culture, there are mythologies similar to that. And I don't know, in the early days, maybe they bought into their explanations because maybe shamans or priests or something like that told people to satisfy them. No, this is actually what happens. Now pay me some money. Maybe that, or maybe these were stories suitable for children until they grow a little older, and then the wisdom of the elders comes in, and they can really, really be told the truth. I was given a present yesterday, I think it was, a dream catcher. Yeah, 2 dream catchers I was given. See, what will I do with them? Well, I'm told I can catch some dreams. I hope they're nice dreams. And then what will I do with them? Will there be a saturation point on the dream catcher where I have to empty it for new dreams to come in? See, the Native American Indians had this dream catcher not because they believed that it would catch dreams, but they saw the psychological wisdom. They saw that when they went to bed at night, when they hung it up with the expectation that it will catch dreams, I'm psychologically setting up a request, a conditioning that says, may I dream, I will dream, and I will understand it in the morning.
They can include this as part of it.
Yeah. So just as in dream interpretation, you make a resolve, you set out a pad, you set out a pen. It's all ritual endorsing, I will dream, I will dream, I will dream.
Formations.
Yeah. And then when you wake up in the morning, you write it down. Yes. There's no surprise that you dreamed. Yes, I knew I dreamed. That was my previous instruction. So like that. So we can devise all kinds of things for children, but as adults, should we not outgrow these things about aliens and angels and any other explanation you can think of, except the fundamental reality that there is something like a cosmic mind that we take as a personal God. What is God by definition? Ishvara. Wonderful definition Swami Vivekananda gives. It is the nearest reading of the human mind, the nearest reading to the human mind of the absolute. We can't grasp the absolute. We can't, give me one package of infinity. It's not possible. It's illogical. So when it comes to infinity, where we don't see any end, we don't see any boundaries, no borders, no restrictions, no conditions, none of us have any idea. We only have symbols of it, such as the sky, such as the ocean, such as the vastness of space. These are all human concepts based on our experience. We have no other way of understanding it until we connect with it. When we connect with pure being, you don't ask when will it happen. Pure being is pure being. There's an end to it. Like saying, when you take a visit to a place you've never been to before, let us say nobody has been to Perth in Australia, and then you arrive in Perth, and your question is, when will I arrive in Perth? No, you're already there. See? How will I know? There's a common question. How will I know when I reach this divine state of absolute bliss? It's a nonsensical question. It's like saying, how will I know when I'm in Perth? You'll know when you're there. You'll see it for yourself. Nothing more to ask. Buddha saw the trick. He never said there was a God or not. He just said, please, here's the way, find it out for yourself. When you get to the end, you'll be able to tell me. What's the point of describing something that is indescribable? Well, there is something of a point, in as much as we bring it within our scope to understand and then form a connection with that acts as a yielding, opening avenue for higher and higher, more subtle, deeper truths. And when we form this relationship with a personal God, how sweet that is. But it is the highest reading to the human mind of the absolute. And it is the highest principle in the relative world. There's nothing more than it in the relative world. It is the purest, the highest, the best principle in this relative world. The world of creation. It is the creator of the creation. Can you get beyond that? Well, yes, you can get beyond that. This is now the impersonal absolute. You can transcend that whole understanding. And that happens by itself. Don't ask when will it happen. It happens by itself. Can't describe it. Yes.
Do you think if we act like
Come close for the recording. Sorry, there's a question here. Yeah.
Swami, do you think if we act like it's happened, like, when you sit to meditate, and just believe that it's already here,
Yes.
then that's it.
Yes, that's a necessary technique. Absolutely. In God's area, there's no past, present, or future. There's no time. And so by having the faith that it's already accomplished. Jesus gives that formula, by the way, mainly bypassed by most people. You see, there's a story, he and his disciples, they came across a barren fig tree, and he raised his hand and it withered. And everyone was astonished. And then he said, greater things than this can you do. If you said to that mountain, move, it will move. Then he gives the key. Only believe it's already accomplished. That's the key. It's already accomplished. You have no doubt. Doubt will cancel it. Fear will cancel it. Because the thinker is infallible, the thought will be infallible and be carried through. This is what they call spiritual healing. You see it as an accomplished fact. Now you've discovered my trick. People come to me, will you pray for this? My son is studying and I don't know whether he'll pass and get his diploma, whether he'll get his university degree. I'll say, yes, yes, yes. And now they're satisfied. In my mind, already accomplished. Then I endorse it and I say, okay, do me one thing. When you get your graduation, please invite me to your graduation. Then in their mind, it's already accomplished also. Yeah. So shifting your thinking is the way of doing it. So we should be careful about superstition. Superstition is weakening. It gives us a codependence, not independence. It gives us a dependency in extreme cases. And we have to shake that off. That becomes shackles for us. It becomes essentially imprisonment for us. And our goal is freedom. We want to be free of that, free from all these superstitions. So it's very good to ask in an inquiring way, why, or why do you say that? Particularly people who have a very dogmatic stance on certain things, regardless of their belief. If they are unable to shift or change, then the only thing to do is to introduce some rationale. That's interesting, is my first phrase. That's interesting that you say that. Why do you say that? What's the meaning? You see, there are some people who assert, only through my way, only through my religion. Well, that's interesting. Why do you say that? Are the Amazon people who never had any contact with any religion, are they doomed? Can you please explain what their salvation route is for them? And then when you see them struggle because you're going off script, and when people go off script, what will they fall back on? Well, the only thing they can fall back on is their own solid, sound reasoning. And the greatest inventions and discoveries were when we got out of the routine, the standard models, and we looked at things from a new way, able to shift the attention in such a way that we find new possibilities and solutions. This is the key to inventions. In yogic language, a little bit of the attention, a little bit of that energy, psychic energy, finds its way up the Shushumna. And we come across an amazing genius of discovery, something that is inventive, something that's wholly new, something that's entirely creative. Because everybody is thinking only on a standard thing and making assumptions, putting in axioms which may not be necessary. There's a standard Kalam cosmological argument that is being used today by those people who believe in a dualistic system of creation. There's a creator somewhere and a creation separate. Separate means it must be connected, of course, in some way. But it is really just matter, and there's a creator of it, like a potter and a potter's wheel, like a potter and the clay, and pots made from the clay. They don't bother to ask, well, where did the Almighty get the clay from? And who made this? And now you're on an infinite regression. So the argument will go that everything that had a beginning has a cause. And since this universe had a beginning, there must be a cause, an uncaused cause. And that it goes along that line. But you see, the axiom itself may be wrong. Maybe this so-called universe did not have an absolute beginning. Maybe it had a temporal beginning, but an absolute beginning, no. Now, the Vedanta philosophy that comes out in Hinduism will tell us that nature is eternal. It has no beginning, it has no end. It's a cyclic affair, like breathing in and breathing out. And so God holds the breath and the universe stops. God breathes and the universe evolves or manifests and then evolves from there. Or Shiva is sitting And then starts a dance, a cosmic dance, and the universe starts operating. Or Shiva unites with Shakti, and then the universe is born from this loving union. Or some such concept is there, you see. But there's always this connection. And there's always a primordial state of potentiality where all evolutionary forces are held in balance, in equilibrium. That means you can't notice if anything moves. You only find something moving if something is ruffled. You only find something exists if something is ruffled. And then you say, okay, a small tremor is there now. Okay, the whole thing is there. And so modern cosmology puts this in the form of a Big Bang. And that seems to support this Kalam cosmological argument, except that the evidence for a Big Bang is a little shaky. Most cosmologists will disagree with this. But as time goes on, we see that the shaky foundations, if there ever were anything, for the current cosmological model called lambda cold dark matter model that assumes a Big Bang explosion, is increasingly being challenged. And I suspect that we'll go back to the ancient rishis that didn't have that model. They had a rotating universe model. And if something starts off in a fluid state and gets rotated, it flattens out, it becomes a spheroid. And the spheroid is, put in mythology, a cosmic egg comes, spheroid shape. And then that separates into different things and so on. So it goes on. To find evidence for that might be a little tough. But what we know is that there's strong evidence now of probably about 4 sigma. That means not quite 5, but it's strong possibility that the 1990s so-called discovery using standard candles of supernova says they made a seeming discovery to see the universe, which is expected to, if it's an effect of a Big Bang, is expected to go and start slowing down somewhere, but is actually speeding up and has been doing so for the last 5 billion years. What's the explanation for that? Nobody knows, but some energy must be there. And so a cosmological constant is invoked that doesn't balance well. And they call this, we don't know what it is, but some energy must be there, so we call it dark energy. Now, recent discoveries have taken that data and they've taken some axioms, some assumptions that should not be there in the first place, namely the isotropic nature of the universe and so on. They've taken that away and out of their calculations. And what they've discovered is that there is a local effect that seems to make an expansion, an acceleration in one direction and a deceleration in the opposite direction. And if you use your imagination, you can see, well, that implies an axis somewhere, because if you have a rotation, you must have an axis. Maybe the ancient sages were correct. Maybe their insights were, as we always understand to be, were absolutely insightful enough to be accurate. Anyway, coming back to the original question of spiritual and religious, although the questioner didn't ask about religion, but what is spiritual and what we understand by it. So spirit really is to do with pure spirit, not conjured up spirit, not ghosts, not spirits in that case, in that sense, or alcohol. No, none of these things. No. So pure spirit, that is what we find when we go to the very foundational level of existence, and discovering it, that's our journey. And anything that diverts the mind away from it, such as superstition or consideration of secondary causes somewhere, unproven, fascinating for some as mere theories, then I'd be careful that it diverts us from our path, even though creative people would like to have these things.
I was listening to you and I was just thinking of my childhood. That's what I was thinking, revising it. So you think, I do understand what you say about
The fairies who
superstition.
came to take your fallen teeth out from under your pillow do not exist.
So, but sometimes, this what is felt, right? So sometimes it does make sense. I'm not a person that I'm into horoscopes or anything like that. I don't look at that and I don't care, to be honest. But sometimes when you look, of what they say about planets and stuff, sometimes it explains things that are going on, for calling it some kind of way. I'm not saying everything, like for example, Mars could be in war 24/7. I'm not saying that. But also, like Ramakrishna's father, they really had, a really big belief for astrology, and it's been used in India for a lot of time as well to kind of marry people and creating this gods and stuff. So I do understand about the angels and the psychology behind,
Okay, well, let me say something. Let me say something about astrology in this sense. If we take this universe to be one thing, one complete system, then everything that moves must affect everything else, no doubt. So there are people that are said to be skilled in calculating the effect that different astronomical bodies have on us. The body that has the most effect is the sun. And some may even give the explanation that movement of satellite bodies around the sun in the solar system will affect the activity of the sun. There's no doubt that Jupiter, for example, has the largest amount of mass in terms of our planetary systems and so on, of any of our solar bodies. So naturally, the sheer mass of something will have an effect on various things. And the fact that we can observe Jupiter, that we can observe Venus and Mars and so on, means that we're within their physical range. All right. It's a bit like when you light a fire, which direction will the smoke go? It'll go upwards. That's fixed. There are some fixed things. We call these laws. But to calculate the variables that take the smoke this way and that way, make it curl, and is almost unpredictable. So there are some unpredictable things in life that you are in control of and that you can manage. There are certain fixed things which are there, which are just there. And so astrology is supposed to deal with those fixed things on the one hand. On the other, it's supposed to supply us with certain conditions where we can improve and change the course of our destiny. But if you want my advice, then I would say, well, all right, every child is born with an astrological chart in India, and that's fine, you can follow it, but don't take it as fatalism, because the strongest, most powerful thing in the entire universe is thought. And you can change anything by thought, and you do already change everything by thought. The important thing is, how do you think and how do you direct this energy that we call thought? Focus on that. Otherwise, it becomes like an excuse. And the excuse comes in the form of two words, if and but. If only I was born under a lucky star, things would be fine. Then I'll give up destiny. Or yes, I would be fine, but I never won the lotto. See? Yeah. So that has a limited value, but I think I told you about the story, and it's Swami Vivekananda's story about the astrologer who came to the court and predicted that the king would not live long. And the prime minister saw the folly of that, since all the conditions for good health were there with the king. And it would have been a disaster for the kingdom had the king left for some reason or other due to ill health or war or what have you. And here's how we can control our destiny. You keep your body healthy and you avoid unnecessary risks. There's every likelihood that the astrologer can be outwitted. Knowing this, the prime minister asked the astrology, and according to your chart, how long do you think you'll live? You say the king will live 6 months. And what's your chart say? Oh, he says 28 years. And with that, the prime minister cut his head off. What became of that? You can't say that everything is predestined. There's a teacher who asked a student, you say everything is predestined. Oh, by the way, as a student, I command you to do some things. What is that? I want you to recite all the letters of the alphabet. Then I want you to count. You count up to 1,000, please. He did all that. He said, now what became of your free will? What became of this determinism on the one side and the fatalism on the other? I just knocked it all out. I gave you an instruction, you followed it. So all this predeterminism or determinism or indeterminism, it comes out in a philosophical argument about free will. And freedom and will, these are two separate and different things, because will has no freedom. If I will to move a chair from A to B, a pre-existing chair has to be there, and that means there are strictures and restrictions. It occupies a certain space. It's subject to the laws of gravity. It's subject to the laws of my counter movement, my muscular movement in moving it. I can't say that it's without restrictions. And the example given is a beautiful example to do with free will. Simple example, the simplest examples are most beautiful. So Sri Ramakrishna told a story about a calf that was tethered to a post and was given enough rope and thought it was free because it could roam throughout the entire field. Didn't realize that it was tethered to the rope. No, it's not free. You can't go beyond the distance. You think you're free. In most places where cattle are held, they keep them restricted by electric wires. And the cow knows when it wants to that part, that fence, it gets a shock. And then, of course, it has nobody to say, please zip yourself up and so on. That's not there. But the cow learns, but it still assumes it has the freedom to eat the grass and roam. I'm free, says the cow. No, you're not. We are the same creatures. We think we are free, but we're not. Freedom is only in the spirit. That's the area of freedom for us.
Thank you, Swami Chain. By the way, is there anyone known as, in this age, as the incarnation of God that has been recognized? Because it's I mean, when I look at all these different I would call entities, which seem like is one after another in very different shapes and forms, and they bring out so many different qualities. And yesterday I was listening to you, and when I was listening also to the Four Noble Truths, and I was analyzing actually that every incarnation of God brings a different quality to the world that teaches. It's not all of them, and I was just, and I was listening about Buddha, and Buddha just it is unconditional love, and he's light, and it's such a beautiful energy. And I know you don't like that word, but that's the only thing that I can express it with. And Ramakrishna was very different. He was very active, from my point of view. He had such a strong character, and he had a massive faith. And although he had all those issues with him, the human body, because he was continuously. He's like he would put his mind in something, and he would keep doing it. He doesn't care if someone comes and says, please stop it, it's something, if he doesn't want to. And it fascinates me. I feel a complete fascination. And then also we've got Gandhi as well, who brought loads of things to the world in solidarity and so on. So I'm just wondering, is there anyone in this age that has been like seen or kind of looked at? It could be an incarnation.
Well, those people, those devotees who take an evidently outstanding giant wave that comes along as the manifestation of a cosmic balancing power coming to earth to correct and balance what we call dharma or adharma, wherever there's adharma. The whole idea of avatara, of course, emerges very lucidly in the Bhagavad Gita because Krishna states it very clearly. But you see, if you have that devotion to that giant wave where it can be no other thing except this cosmic mind manifesting. And it won't manifest, obviously, in the same way because the needs will be different. Now, the interesting thing is the Buddhists will not take Buddha as an incarnation. They don't have that doctrine. Buddha, from their point of view, went through hundreds and hundreds of lives, some 500 lives and odd, and more, to get to the state where he was ready for the opening and realization that was called Buddhahood, where he became one of enlightened intellect. So they don't accept that doctrine, which raises another point. Is it important? Now, you might say for some people it may not be important, and we have to acknowledge that that is their way of viewing things and should not inhibit them in any way. And those of them who accept some outstanding being as an incarnation will benefit deeply from the cosmic mind because they would take this as a balancing power, a manifesting balancing power of the cosmic mind. Many people will take the modern incarnation of this age to be Ramakrishna. Us who are dedicated to Ramakrishna's life and teaching will find strong evidence for that for ourselves. But if people don't take it like that, it doesn't worry. We don't worry. It's not a crucial thing for us. It could well be an advantage for those who accept it, however. And so we have to examine the lives of these different beings and see what are the outstanding characteristics. For example, a so-called normal being who has attained the state of nirvikalpa samadhi, what in Buddhist language is called nirvana, will not be able to be in that continuous state for more than 3 weeks, 21 days, in which case the body will fall off. Others, we can clearly see that they can be in that state for maybe, say, some 6 months. Ramakrishna, for example, was one of those who remained in that state. But I'm not selling Ramakrishna, and I don't want to put him in the fish market and cheapen him. So take him as you like. Some people take him as an incarnation. Some people take him as a Paramahansa. He was, after all, called that. Some people take him as a great saint. But nobody takes him in any lesser way. And after all, supposing a mortal such as, let's say, Gautama Siddhartha, if we take him in that way. Let's take a mortal as the Buddhists will take him, and he becomes a Buddha amongst many Buddhas, or a Bodhisattva according to the northern traditions. Why do we think that that is special? It's because nearness becomes oneness. When a person is that close, they will reflect the fullness of whatever is there, whatever is being realized. And so there can be no distinctions often. When a saint exhibits that level of closeness, then surely it's like seeing the full glory of the Supreme Being flowing through, just like light streaming through a crack in the roof, flowing through that. When Swami Vivekananda talks about these things, he says, who else could we worship except those great beings? Since we have no understanding of the absolute. We can't frame it in intellectual terms, we can't frame it in linguistic terms or conceptual terms. So how else can we imagine this supreme absolute unless it's in the form of a human? And so he goes on to say, if we were fishes, we'd have a fish god. If we were buffaloes, we'd have a buffalo god. So humans have a need for a human god. And even if you don't have a human form, such as, for example, the Muslims or the Jews and some others, then at least there are human qualities that come out. The all-merciful, the all-beneficent, the all-loving. You can't avoid the human qualities coming out and human forms coming out. So these incarnations are not there just only to adjust the imbalance of the world, but they're there also as a model. That is why you have a book that Swami Vivekananda always carried around with him in his wandering days. And he wrote a foreword when he was only about 19 or so, 18 or 19 years of age. And it was a book called Imitation of Christ. If there's a Christ, should we not imitate him as much as we possibly can? If there's a Ram Krishna, should we not imitate him and his life as much as we can? If there's a Buddha, should we not imitate him as much as we can as the highest model of humanity, the highest model of perfection? If there's a Krishna, should we not try to understand what was Krishna and use that as a model and live up to those standards? So this is the value of that.
Just a quick last question. I was wondering, because talking about superstition, let's say, because there are so many different gods, and there's some people who take, for example, let's say Lakshmi as the abundance, and
well, let me
then
stop.
they could.
Let me stop you there and
Okay.
make a correction, if you don't mind. You see, nowhere does anybody. I don't know of any polytheistic religion existent today. If you're saying Lakshmi and referring to Hinduism and Hindu gods and goddesses and so on, this is a gross misunderstanding because nobody bothers to study the scriptures. So let me direct you to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The question is asked, how many are the devas? We have to understand what is the Sanskrit deva comes from. The root, illuminating factor is what it means. The thing that shines. So what are the other devas in the body? There are gods and goddesses within the body. They're called the eyes, the ears. These are illuminating factors. When you look at somebody's eyes, don't tell me they don't shine. Yes, they shine. It's the difference between a corpse and a living person. The eyes shine. We know they're alive. We congratulate them. If there's no life in the eye, we put them in the ground or put them on the fire. This is how we deal with it. So these are devas, these indriyas. What is the king of the indriyas? Indra. Indra, the king of the deities, the senses. The question is asked to Yajnavalkya, how many are these deities? And the answer comes 3033, and then the question is asked again because it doesn't seem satisfactory. 33 it boils down to. Who are these 3000 and odd? Oh, these are different manifestation variations of these 33. What are these 33? These 33 are 33 categories of beings, not gods, 33 categories. What are these categories? These are the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, and also Indra and Prajapati. These are the 33. What do they symbolize? Anyway, the question is asked continuously, and it comes down to 3. Then it comes down to 2.5. Then it ultimately comes down to 1. So your final conclusion is there's only one, manifesting in different ways. This puts us in a category beyond creation, which is dualistic. What it says is the whole of existence is a manifested form of that one entity. What a wonderful, wonderful concept that is. It takes us away from the problems of dualism, that there's a creator and a creation, and puts us in a connected way with the entire universal existence. So we have to be careful when we say that. There are many forms of this one entity that we can call God, many forms of it. In fact, I ask people at Durga Puja, how many arms does Durga have? I can ask people here now, how many arms does Durga have? Hello, are you there? Are you out there? How many arms does Durga have? Anybody can answer. Huh?
8.
8, 10, whatever. Well, it's a catch question. I'm saying at least 14 billion.
14.6 billion.
14 billion or so people on the planet, presumably they all have arms, at least that much. That's not even to talk about the arms of the animals and so on. Every arm is hers, you see. This universal concept is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's not pantheism, it's panentheism, if you wanted to put it technically. It means it's not all that's there. There's some transcendent aspect of it as well. But when you take time and space and causality and function, every hand it belongs to that. This is not just an invention of theology. This is contained in the Upanishads. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad is very clear. And the Bhagavad Gita also echoes it. That every hand is through all hands, through all heads, through all eyes, through all arms, like that. The Purusha Shuktam also tells us, gives us a portrayal of a cosmic person. So every eye is there. Every star that winks and blinks at you is an eye of this one universal deity. So this polytheistic idea is superstition and has to go, and has caused much, much warfare and blood. What is Hinduism is a monotheistic religion that finds its culmination in monism and embraces not only dualistic philosophy, but qualified non-dualism and then absolute non-dualism at its final conclusion. There is only one entity manifesting as all these things. Why should we therefore take different forms and worship them? It is because that system that does it is pluralistic. Pluralistic, not polytheistic, pluralistic. It means we can choose to worship in many ways because we're constitutionally different. We will choose our individual form that we like. And this concept is encapsulated in this wonderful, wonderful concept of Ishta Devata, or principle of Ishta Devata, chosen ideal. We can democratically choose whatever form we like. If God made the whole universe, can he not choose thousands and billions of forms for himself? And he does. So many ways, not so many gods, so many ways. And even Hindus don't understand this properly. Because they glibly say, there's a story about a Muslim and a Hindu friend. They were having a friendly debate. My God's real. No, we have the reality. All right, let's make a test. We'll go up to a high building. We'll throw ourselves off. You have enough faith for that? You have faith in your God? Yes, yes. Okay, let's do it. And the one that gets saved and doesn't crash to the bottom, that's obviously the true God. So they jump off the building, 1, 2, 3, simultaneously drop, and the Muslim gets saved, lands on a hay cart. And the Hindu lands awkwardly and breaks every bone in his body. And if a Muslim friend goes and visits him, see, my God is superior. What happened? No, 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 your God is not necessarily superior. The problem is we have so many gods. I wasn't finished praying by the time I reached the ground. I was still. So we can make fun, but you see, that's it can be a serious thing in the study books which are there for secondary schools studying religion. And when it comes to Hinduism, it says first line: Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. And I wish that line would be scrubbed out forever. They do try and rescue it later, but the damage is already done. No, it's not a polytheistic religion. It's generous enough to be a pluralistic religion and supply as many ways as you like. That's the difference.
Lovely. I've got just a last question. Do you think stones and, let's say, Tibetan bowls, is it superstition, or do you? I do believe in them. I do, because I felt it. I do, and I do it. So, what do you think that's superstition as well?
Is there anything in the universe that is not made from energetic vibrations?
No.
These energetic vibrations, is there anything that is energetically vibrating that is not pure spirit?
No.
There we are.
Okay.
All right, good. We'll leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swami.
Merci beaucoup, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Guru Mahagat Swami.
Guru Mahagat.
Thank you, well, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Om